In this episode, I'm taking the best clips from previous videos and I'm dropping real answers to the most frequently asked questions I've been getting on this channel about moving to San Antonio. Questions like,
how much are the HOAs? Do you like Alamo Ranch or Stone Oak better? What areas have the lowest property tax rates? What are the areas with the most jobs? How are the winter months? The crime rate in San Antonio.
Stay tuned because this is the Q&A session that you've been waiting for. I'm giving you everything that you need to know about living in San Antonio and we're getting into it right now.
Cat Williams wants to know what areas have the lowest property tax rates but still a safe area to live. So this one is a really good one too because I talk a lot of my videos about the property taxes here in San Antonio. If you're going to be in the city limits, your tax rate is usually going to be around about 2.7%, which means that depending on how much money you put down, your property taxes could be up to a third of your mortgage payment. Contrast that with the 2% you'd pay if you lived outside city limits, and it's usually a difference of like $200 to $300 a month in the payment for the exact same priced home. If you jump into Google Maps and type in San Antonio, Texas, you'll see a pretty good outline of what the city limits look like. A lot of the areas outside Loop 1604 still have a San Antonio address but fall outside the city limits, giving you the opportunity to take advantage of lower property taxes. And as I mentioned earlier, these areas are where a lot of our clients tend to settle down based on newer communities, great schools, and a sense of safety that they feel from all the gated neighborhoods out there. Sean Young asks, do you like Alamo Ranch or Stone Oak better? This one's actually a really good question because a lot of the people who are reaching out to us about moving to San Antonio are usually comparing these two neighborhoods to each other. And if you currently live in San Antonio or you're researching these neighborhoods and you got a feel for what you like one over the other, why don't you go ahead and help me out, drop a comment below and let everybody know what you think about it. But full disclosure though, I actually live out in the Alamo Ranch area, out in the far west side of San Antonio, so I'm a little bit biased. And I've actually got this whole playlist right here about what it's like to live out on the far west side of town in case y'all want to check that out. But for some reason, this video that I did right here about Stone Oak really got the phone ringing from a lot of y'all moving out here. I mean, seriously though, I went back and watched this thing like a dozen times trying to figure out what I did and how to recreate it, but I think it just comes down to the fact that Stone Oak is pretty awesome. But they're both really good places to live, and I think it really just comes down to what you're looking for more so in a neighborhood. I happen to think that Stone Oak is a prettier place to live just because of all the hills, the higher elevation, and the views that you get from being up in that part of town. Whereas Alamo Ranch on the far west side is generally more flat with less mature landscaping because of all the newer subdivisions going in recently. Their overall cost of living is slightly higher though in Stone Oak because it still falls within city limits, and so you've got higher property taxes in the 2.7% range. And you pay a little more for all that beauty with slightly higher HOA costs with all the gated communities up in there. And in some sections, you can actually pay into 2 or 3 different HOAs depending on how your subdivision was cut. Contrast that with Alamo Ranch in the far west side, and you'll see on the map that most everywhere out here still falls outside of city limits. Your property taxes are more like 2% out here, and even with the lower HOA costs, a lot of these newer subdivisions still have some pretty amazing amenities. The school systems on both sides of town are both exemplary rated, although Reagan High School in Stone Oak outranks pretty much everywhere else. But the biggest difference that you're going to find is going to be in the ages, the styles, and in the price points of the homes in these areas. Stone Oak's about 15 to 20 years older and completely built out with entry-level homes starting in the low 300,000s, ranging all the way up to $1 million estates on top of hills with views so far you can see downtown San Antonio on a really clear day. Out in Alamo Ranch, you'll still find homes starting in the mid 200,000s with pricings topping out in the high 400s. The area is a lot newer, and right now there's still several new developments going up in different phases of completion. If you're really looking for affordability and great schools as well as a newer home with some of the best neighborhood amenities in the entire city, then I'm telling you, Alamo Ranch is where it's at. But for the people who are willing to pay a little extra for the location, for the scenery, and for the exclusivity that comes from living in the Stone Oak area, they tell you that there's nowhere else in San Antonio that they'd rather live. Lily Andrews, and she's wanting to know how much are the HOAs. So here's the really good news about the HOAs here in San Antonio. Most of them are in the $300 to $600 a year range, which really tends to surprise a lot of people. They'd be like, hold up, Greg, that's like $25 to $50 a month. And I'm like, I know, right? Really, it's kind of crazy when you think about all the amenities that you'll find in most of the suburban areas in San Antonio. I mean, you've got everything from large pools with splash pads and sport courts to walking trails and large green spaces, and even lifestyle directors that organize community activities with food trucks, block parties, and neighborhood garage sales. Now, I can already hear a lot of y'all out there talking about how you don't want to be in an HOA with all of the rules and stuff, which, first of all, let me get one thing straight. This is Texas. And as I'm sure you know, Texans really don't like being told what to do either. More than anything, the HOAs here are mainly just about keeping up the aesthetic of the neighborhood. If you ain't trying to cut your grass, or if you want to paint your house pink or purple or something like that, HOA probably gonna be like,
we don't do that here.
Other than that, you're probably gonna be cool. Unless, of course, you want like goats and chickens or something like that. That's gonna be a hard no. Expat Lifestyle wants to know, what are the areas with the most jobs? I want to move close so I can take the bus or walk. The areas with most of the major employers in San Antonio are going to be the northwest, the far west, and the far north parts of the city. And people living in these areas typically enjoy shorter commute times to work. Northwest San Antonio is along I-10 from Loop 410 all the way out past Loop 1604. And right up in there, you've got the Texas Medical Center with a number of major area hospitals and clinics. There's the corporate campus for USAA, and then the main campus for UTSA is right off of Loop 1604, along with the corporate headquarters for Valero Energy right next door. Out on the far west side, we see a lot of the main operation complexes for large financial institutions and insurance companies like Wells Fargo, Chase Bank, Citibank, Frost Bank, and Nationwide. Then up in far north San Antonio, we have more jobs in the medical field with Methodist Hospital, Baptist Hospital, and the Children's Hospital, all right there in the Stone Oak Medical Complex, along with even more jobs in the energy field with the corporate headquarters for Marathon Petroleum right off of Highway 281. Then, of course, there's the 4 military bases we have here with Lackland Air Force Base, Camp Bullis, Randolph Air Force Base, and Fort Sam Houston. Now, you can check out this video right here if you're wanting a full breakdown on the highest paying jobs and major employers in the San Antonio area. We see a lot of people making a decision about where they live based on where they're going to end up working and the type of community that they feel comfortable with. This video right here gives you a whole lot to think about when it comes time to figuring out which neighborhood you want to live in.
BG wants to know, is it possible to get pre-approved for a home in San Antonio but still have employment in a different state? My family would be living in SA and I would be working in California. We've actually helped a lot of clients do exactly that, so it's totally doable if it's something you want to look into. In fact, a few of the things that my team covers in their initial consultation is timing around your employment and move dates, along with a few financing guidelines when we're helping people put a plan together for relocating. Now, we're realtors and not loan officers, okay? So we do have folks that we can refer you to have a much deeper discussion around your financing strategies. But in scenarios where you're looking to buy a place in Texas without job or income in this state, we usually recommend that you look into a second home purchase. We've had folks go that route when only part of the family was moving here, like you mentioned, and also when our clients are looking to buy here before they actually secure a job locally. It doesn't really matter if you currently own a home or if you're renting in your current state. Lenders just consider it a second home purchase for that loan product when you're buying a home in an area but you're not drawing income from there yet. You do have to go conventional with at least 10% down, so that cuts out government insured loans like FHA and VA, and the interest rate is slightly higher for a second home purchase, but not by very much at all. For a lot of our clients, going the route of a second home purchase made a lot of sense because it allowed them the opportunity to secure a home here while still giving them the flexibility they were looking for around their job search when they put their current home on the market and ultimately when they decided to move here.
So Grandma Johnson says, thanks for the video, love the content. He likes all the new communities going up in the area. However, with new communities comes less space between neighbors. Where should I be looking if I want a bit more space but also have the community feel? Good schools are important, of course, too. So this is a common question we get from a lot of people too, because there's this talk about all the affordability in San Antonio and Texas in general, especially when you're comparing it to some of the higher cost areas on the East Coast and the West Coast. But that's mainly if you want to be in a subdivision. You can still get a really nice home here starting in the $250,000 to $300,000 range for something that's either brand new built, recently built, or in a master plan community. The only real issue here is that most subdivisions only have a 5-foot setback from the side lot line, which means you pretty much end up with another house 10 feet away from yours. And it doesn't really matter if you're like the $200,000 or the $400,000 price range. Your neighbors are basically right there. If you're looking for something with a half-acre home site or bigger, you actually have to go a little further out into the outskirts of San Antonio. Some good places to look are out further west towards Medina Lake, out towards Bernie along I-10, or further north along Highway 281 out towards Bulverde and Spring Branch. These areas really are beautiful with some amazing views of the Texas Hill Country, and you've got access to great school systems there too. You just have to be willing to pay for something like that because larger home sites with newer homes in these areas typically start somewhere in the mid 400,000s and then they jump up pretty quick from there.
John Zeke says, one of the reasons I'm moving to Texas is that as a disabled vet at max level, I don't have to pay any property taxes. And there are military bases for me to shop for sales, tax-free goods. I laugh at the idea of heat. I live in Minnesota, and no matter how hot it gets, your car doesn't slip into a ditch and kill you. So this one right here is actually a pretty big deal for a lot of our military clients. Not only do we see a lot of active duty folks PCSing in and out of San Antonio with all of the military bases and medical facilities here, but we also have a lot of retired service members moving here as well. Many of which either went to basic training here or were stationed here at some point in the past, fell in love with San Antonio, and decided to move back here whenever they could. And for those of y'all that didn't know, you're looking at some serious discounts on your property taxes if you have a service-related disability rating, in some cases bringing your tax liability all the way down to zero. We've had clients able to increase their purchase price anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 more once the property taxes were pulled out and still keep their payment the same. And with San Antonio affectionately known as Military City USA, there's all kinds of opportunities for folks to make a home here, to take advantage of the DoD and civil service job opportunities here, and either raise a family or settle down for retirement in a city that really appreciates the service that they've given to this country. Oh, and on a side note, I actually grew up in Kansas, and while the winters there aren't as severe as the winters in Minnesota, we'd still get snow and freezing rain well into March, so I felt that whole sliding into a ditch thing down in my soul.
Rage Quit asks, how are the tornadoes or hurricanes in San Antonio? I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one up here one more time.
We don't do that here.
A lot of the severe weather in Texas actually misses San Antonio for the most part. Out in West Texas, it's all dry and you got these crazy dust storms. And then further up in Dallas is where you usually see a lot more of the tornadoes and the large size hail. And then over in Houston is where you see more of the hurricanes and the flooding with them being so close to the Gulf. Not that we don't get hail and some strong thunderstorms in San Antonio. It's just that we're pretty fortunate in the sense that, you know, it's not near as extreme out here as it is in other parts of the state. So Julie Smith says, you said about the season being 2 summers. She wants to know, how are the winter months? So this goes back to one of my other videos where I said something like, we do have all 4 seasons. There's fall, spring, summer 1, and summer 2. That's just to say that it's either warm, hot, or really hot in San Antonio for most of the year. My wife and I grew up in the Midwest, so the first time that we went back to school shopping out here, we made the mistake of buying our kids all these jeans and long sleeve shirts and hoodies. And then of course we ended up with highs in the mid 90s all the way through Thanksgiving. I can still remember one of the first Halloweens out here when my wife got extra fancy and ordered me and our youngest daughter some custom Beauty and the Beast costumes. Not only could I not see anything in that mask and she had to lead me around half blind most of the time, but I swear I lost like 10 pounds sweating in that thing because it was like 85 degrees that night. We did win the best costume contest though. Most winters here are really mild though, with highs in the mid 50s from December on through February, and you get a few nights here and there where it'll drop down to the low 30s. At least that's what I've been saying to people until we got this like freak of nature snowstorm that happened back in February that pretty much shut down the whole state of Texas for a week. At first it was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Kids, come look at the snow, play in the snow, be one with the snow. And everyone was happy. Oh yeah, and there was also that one guy that was rolling through Stillwater Ranch on his 4-wheeler doing donuts in the cul-de-sacs. And then the power went out and didn't come back on for like 3 days. Crazy thing though is that it was over just as fast as it started. Weatherman was like, Wednesday, 18 degrees outside and miserable. Thursday, 76 degrees outside and beautiful. Other than that one freak event that we'll probably never see again in our lifetime, the winters out here in San Antonio are usually pretty easy. That kid's son asked for a video on the crime rate in San Antonio. This one is actually the top question our team gets when people reach out about moving here. And a couple months ago, I put this video together right here, which talks specifically about the crime here in San Antonio. Now, as a realtor, I've got this code of ethics things that I have to follow, which kind of prohibits me from saying things like this neighborhood is good and that neighborhood is bad. However, what I can say is that when people reach out to my team about moving here, just about everyone says the exact same thing. They all want to live in a nice, safe neighborhood with good schools, and in most cases, they want to be in newer communities with homes built in the last 10 to 15 years, or sometimes even as far back as like 20 years. And with that criteria in mind, almost everyone that we've helped relocate to San Antonio has moved to one of 3 places. We see a lot of people head out to the far west side, just outside Loop 1604 by SeaWorld, for all of the new home communities and some of the best affordability that you're going to find in the entire city. Then there's the northwest side around Helotes and La Cantera area, outside Loop 1604 along I-10. Right in there, you've got this cool mix of a slower paced country vibe with Helotes, and then this high-end lifestyle in the La Cantera area with some of the best shopping, dining, and luxury communities in all of San Antonio. And finally, there's the far north side outside Loop 1604, just on the other side of Highway 281. Folks tend to move out here mainly for the highly rated schools in the Northeast Independent School District and the sense of safety they feel with all of the gated communities in the area. So Darren wants to know if the traffic here is bad like in California. So here's the deal. If you ask locals in San Antonio about the traffic, they're probably going to tell you that it's terrible. But if you ask me, it's nothing compared to the traffic in Austin, Dallas, or Houston. And we also work with a lot of people moving here from out of state who say that the traffic here is nothing compared to where they came from, especially my California people. And it has a lot to do with how our highway systems are set up down here. You can literally drive from one side of town all the way to the other in the 7th largest city in the country with a couple million people in the metro area. You can literally drive 20 miles from one side of San Antonio clear to the opposite end of the metro area and get there in like 30 or 40 minutes pretty much any time of the day, even in rush hour. I tell that to my California peeps and they be like, whoa, I'm not trying to be funny, but I heard in California it takes y'all like 45 minutes just across the street. Geneva B wants to know, what are some things that people can't know about San Antonio unless you live there? Or what are some things that people don't tell you about San Antonio? For me, I probably have to say that it's the culture and the vibe here. I mean, you can't really know what that's like until you experience it firsthand when you get here. And I promise y'all, I'm not trying to get all woo-woo on everybody, okay? And I know that it's tough to put words to a feeling, but I'm telling you, it's just a different kind of energy out here in San Antonio. And it's why when I'm putting these videos together, I like to drive through the neighborhoods to show off the homes and the trails and the amenities. It's why I throw the drone up in the air so you can see the landscapes with the hills and the sunsets, all the parks and the lakes and the fun stuff to do here. This city really is beautiful and it has such a major impact on how people feel when they live out here. When people reach out to our team about moving to San Antonio, one of the first things that we always ask people is if you've been here before, because if you have, then you know firsthand exactly what I'm talking about. More than anything though, it's really the people here that make San Antonio what it is, and you don't have to take my word for it. Every video on this channel is full of comments from people that just love this city. Strongo says, I've lived here for 2 years now. It's awesome for me. This city is peaceful. People are really friendly and respectful. There's lots to do and lots of food to eat. The city is growing bigger. There's a lot of opportunity here. Lazarus Salazar says, we moved here 4 months ago and absolutely love it. We live in Alamo Ranch. My wife and I love the schools and my son is just excited to go. And like you said, the economy here is incredible. If you're not working, it's because you don't want to. And then Jaime Santillan says, great video. I love San Antonio, and looking at your video, I want to tell you that most of the things you mentioned are spot on. One more thing, San Antonio is like 4 different cities in one, depending on what side of the city you're in. There's different customs and different neighborhoods here too. Us older folks know the difference. It can tell what side of the city you live on based on how you talk and act. People just really love living here, and it's one of those things that you have to experience for yourself in order to really understand. That, and you can't really appreciate how bad the fire ants are out here until you get to San Antonio and one of them things starts chewing on you.
Sarah Ortiz says, hi Greg, my husband and I are relocating from Boston, Massachusetts. Haven't heard much about the healthcare systems. It's extremely important to us for personal reasons with one of our boys. I like what I've heard about this area of San Antonio. Can you provide your own insight regarding healthcare? Thanks. So the healthcare systems here in San Antonio are actually really strong, and that's also one of the questions that we've had from a lot of our clients either in or nearing retirement as well. We're actually home to the Texas Medical Center, which serves as the hub for medical research, technology, and innovation in the South Central region. The Stone Oak Medical Center on the far north side has a couple of large area hospitals with North Central Baptist and Methodist Hospital, along with the Children's Hospital of San Antonio. Out on the far west side, you have the Christus Santa Rosa Hospital, along with several smaller clinics in the Westover Hills Business District, which is actually where our oldest daughter went for physical therapy a few years ago after a back sprain playing middle school basketball. And on a more personal level, our youngest daughter actually has a super rare condition with her right eye, and we were really fortunate to get connected with some amazing eye doctors at a private practice here. They put together a specific game plan to not only help retain, but also drastically improve her vision as well. All that's just to say that I really think you're going to find everything you're looking for here medically, and we'd be happy to have any further conversations with you about questions you've got with moving your family here.
Cullen McCormick asks, what's so good about HEB? I'm moving to San Antonio in a month. Okay, Cullen, I hope you're watching this, bro, because I'm about to put you on game to what this whole HEB thing is really about. First of all, HEB is the single best grocery store chain in the universe. And it's mainly because it's a Texas thing, and we all know everything is better down here in Texas. Now, we got a lot of people reaching out about San Antonio who are also thinking about moving to Florida, and trust me, you really don't want to do that? I mean, I get it. Florida's got all this pretty sunshine and these amazing beaches, but Florida also has hurricanes, big snakes, and alligators. And if you're not careful, you're gonna end up shopping at one of them other grocery stores thinking you're really doing something when you could have just came to Texas and had a life-changing experience every time you need to pick up some bread, milk, and eggs. And in case you think I'm just hyping things up, we tell clients all the time that it's basically a wasted trip to San Antonio if you don't visit at least one HEB in the area that you're planning on moving to. And they be so mind blown, they even take selfies standing outside of HEB and send them to us. Seriously though, I really wish I could find the words to truly articulate the awesomeness that is HEB. But it's kind of like trying to explain to somebody what love is. You just know it when you feel it. Jason Deadrock says, watching your videos really makes me and my wife excited to PCS back to and settle down for good in San Antonio. Now this one right here is probably one of my favorite comments on the channel so far. Not only do we see a lot of active duty folks PCSing in and out of San Antonio with the 4 military bases that we have here, but we also help a lot of retired service members who are moving here as well. Many of which who either went to basic training here or were stationed in San Antonio at some point in the past, fell in love with this city, and made it a goal of theirs to move back here whenever they could. And with San Antonio affectionately known as Military City USA, there's all kinds of opportunities for folks to make a home here, to take advantage of DoD and civil service job opportunities here, and either raise a family or settle down in retirement in a city that really appreciates them for their service that they've given to this country. Yard Joy wants to know, how far in advance should a person start looking if they're thinking about relocating? We told most people that if you're thinking about relocating anytime in the next 6 months to a year, then it's a really good idea to go ahead and just reach out to our team, start the conversation, and get a plan together to see what it looks like to move out here and how to get a smooth transition. We've got people that we're working with right now that we first started talking to over a year ago, and when I think back to what it was like moving to San Antonio, I just know that my family and I, we would have really appreciated having somebody that we could talk to ahead of time to kind of keep us in the loop on what was going on out here. Now, if you're thinking about moving to San Antonio and you want any more information on what it's like to live out here and what that process might look like, our team's getting calls from people every single day, just like you, looking into the Alamo City, and we really dig it. So if you're thinking about moving or relocating anywhere in the San Antonio area, then give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. However you want to get a hold of us, we've got your back when moving to San Antonio, Texas.